Hey everyone, welcome back to the POTA Performers Podcast here on YouTube. I'm Stuart Victor Echo 9 Charlie Foxtrot, and on this channel we bring together just some really interesting folks from around the POTA world, ham radio in general. And today we have a very distinct voice in the POTA community. I'm sure everybody watching has got him in their log at least once, maybe twice, maybe 50, who knows. Jeff, November 3, Ford Motor Company, or November 3, Foxtrot Mike Charlie joins us today from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Well, at least I think you always say near Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Yes, that's right, Stuart. November 3, Foxtrot, Mike Charlie, Ford Motor Company.
Now, did you work for Ford?
No, not at all. It's actually FCC assigned from the 1980s when I originally became a general class ham, and I have just never changed it. I have a lot of fun with the Ford Motor Company, and people seem to remember it and really enjoy it.
Well, there you kind of tipped us off to the start of your ham radio community, ham radio journey. Why don't you let us know how you got started in ham radio? So you date back as far as I did in the 80s sometime.
Sure, exactly. Well, actually, my interest in radio started when I was in kindergarten. My father had a pager, and you would dial a phone number, and some magic would happen, and that black box would beep. And I wanted to know how that worked. And that really sparked my interest in the ether. And from there, I ended up going to a 100 milliwatt, 2-channel crystal-controlled CB walkie-talkie. And then that was fun. I was talking to people in my neighborhood, but I wanted to talk a little further. So what I built an antenna in my parents' attic. And this was in elementary school. And so I found all the wire I could, even a metal music stand. I connected everything as part of the antenna in the attic for that walkie-talkie. And it did improve my range. But then eventually I got a 4-watt AM CB radio and a half-wave vertical and mounted on the chimney of my parents' house, and yet extended the range again. And then I started to transition into scanner, as many of us had. And I got a Bearcat 4 crystal-controlled 8-channel scanner. I could only afford 4 crystals, though, because I bought the scanner with snow shoveling money and grass cutting money because I was still in elementary school. And I had a lot of fun with the scanner, and eventually added on a Radio Shack DX160 shortwave receiver. And so then I was listening in the United States. The Carter administration was really getting the world going about human rights and that sort of thing. And I love listening to the broadcasts from all over the world and the varying perspectives of people as I got a bit older, into high school and such, but I still didn't have my ticket. And I didn't become a ham until college. When I was in college, I saw a guy that had a quad up. That just caught my interest. So I went over and introduced myself to him. And he ended up becoming my Elmer, helped me to learn CW, and finally get my ham radio ticket while I was in college. And so that was in the 80s. And that's where the FMC came from, is when I fairly quickly went from novice to general class.
Oh, so you've been in ham radio for maybe just a couple of years longer than I did. I think I got into it in the late 80s. I was much the same story, though. You know, I grew up in Niagara Falls, Ontario. I always say on the good side of Niagara Falls. You know, and I would listen to all these radio stations from around the U.S. on a little clock radio, and then just like you, I think tunable VFOs were around then. So I managed to get myself a shortwave radio. And when I was deployed with the military over in Cyprus in 1992, shortwave radio was my link back home. So I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and tune in to Radio Canada International, get all the news from back home, because the government was sending us, get this, they were sending us VHS tape of programs that were running on Canadian television, but they're always, 3-4 weeks behind by the time we got them. So the news was already old by the time we watched the news. So it's a shame that shortwave radio is kind of dying off, and most countries are now either shut down or going to shut down their shortwave broadcasts. But it's a lot of fun to, I always say the my grandkids will never have that experience that we did when growing up as kids, listen to, Radio Moscow at 10 o'clock at night in the
Right, exactly. Yes. Yep. And that was one of my favorites.
And I remember VOA and all these great broadcasters from back in the day. I don't know, is VOA still on?
It is. It's still on. And in fact, their museum has extended hours during Dayton Hamfest. And I plan on attending Dayton for the first time in May of this year. So looking forward to meeting a lot of these POTA folks in particular that I've been talking to the past couple of years, but haven't met in person yet. I've only met a couple of them in person. Otherwise, I know them primarily through their QRZ page, which I really enjoy, and in chatting on the radio.
So how did you get involved with POTA? What tweaked your interest in Parks on the Air? Because before you answer, I'll just kind of share mine experience.
Sure.
I took 30 years off of ham radio. I started a family. I ran a few businesses in my course of my time. I moved around a lot. And it wasn't until I semi-retired where my wife said, "You remember when you used to do ham radio 30 years ago? Why don't you go do that and get out of my hair?" Right.
Right.
Because being retired, I was semi-retired at the time. I was spending way too much time with her directly. Right. She wasn't used to it. So I was dialing around the band one day and I just heard these people yelling or calling CQ POTA, CQ Parks on the Air, and going, "What is this?" It was the same kind of query that I had. What is this FT8 stuff I hear? Right. So tell me about your Parks on the Air. How did you find out about it? What tweaked your interest in it?
Sure. Well, much like you, I took about a 25-year hiatus from HF. And so, as a young guy with a new career and then a couple of kids, that's where the 25 years went past very quickly. I still did a little bit of 2440, that sort of thing, but really no HF. Then my wife and I became empty nesters a couple of years ago. And so in September of 2023, I said, "All right, the kids are gone. I got a little more time. I'd like to get back into HF and see what's going on." So I got a new station, an FTDX10, and I put up a Hustler 5 BTV vertical in the backyard. I tied into my old radial system that I had for a Butternut HF6V vertical that I had in about the same position many years earlier. And so I had an established counterpoise, and I added some more to it, and got on HF, and I found things did change. One of the things I noticed immediately as I spun the dial was this, everybody was lined up on the zeros. When I was last active in HF, you kind of went anywhere you wanted. People weren't lined up on .00 something. You just sort of tuned by ear. And a lot of people didn't even have digital displays necessarily. And so it was, quite a bit different that way. I also found the band scope very interesting on the FTDX10. I could see all the signals that were in the band. That was really cool, like a spectrum analyzer built into the hardware. So that was kind of cool. And I took some advantage of that, but something new. And then I heard these guys talking to CQ POTA, just like you. And I found the exchange was fairly simple and easy. And I liked the quick contacts. And so I just gave them some, I answered them, did the exchange, and really didn't know much more about it until I attended a local club meeting. The Pottstown Area Amateur Radio Club near me had a first-time POTA event at a local park. And they had about a half dozen guys come and set up POTA stations in the park and invite the club members and the public to come see what POTA was about. And I didn't really know much about it. And they had materials there. I got to meet and talk to some of the guys, see their equipment. They were operating 2 meters, down to whatever, I think 40. And they had several stations and just had a good time. And I learned they had written materials as well. And I learned about the POTA spotting page, POTA.app. And that was sort of a game changer for me. All of a sudden, I could actually find where these guys were, and I could intentionally go after them. And so I went very quickly from my first POTA contact on September 19th, 2023, was with Don, Whiskey Victor 1 Whiskey, who's still really active from Connecticut. Often talk to him on 40 meter in the morning. And then I just started to enjoy it. And I had another game changer, I would say, when I found specialized POTA hunting software. And I first tried the Chrome Plus extension, the POTA Plus extension in Chrome, and that was pretty cool. Used the spotting page, but added some more stuff to it, including a scan feature and some other things. QRZ, I could click and go to QRZ, and I really liked that. Personalize it for me and made it more fun. I could see, their photos and some of the background of the folks I was talking to, the POTA activators, with that extension. And now I've even gotten more sophisticated software that the POTA Plus Chrome extension's really retired now. Hunter Log came out, and that's what I've been primarily using is Hunter Log. And that has been a game changer for my hunting. And it's allowed me to be much more efficient in identifying and moving quickly because it has cat control. And cat control just makes a huge difference for me. And I'm sure you appreciate it being a DX.
Yeah, I don't use cat control too much at home here just because it's hooked into my WSJTX computer.
Right.
I have a separate computer just for FT8. So, I do during contests. I do unhook the WSJTX and plug it into my N3FMC, and it is a game changer. I have to check out the Hunter Log tool because one of my, like you mentioned, the POTA Plus extension is not being developed anymore. I like
Correct.
it. My interest in hunting is I like to go and accumulate new parks. So I'll do all the new parks to me first prior to going down and seeing what else is out there. And if that can do that, then I'm sold on it for sure.
Yeah, I would say so my hunting tip, the biggest game changer for me is this specialized POTA hunting software. And there's 3 major ones that I'm aware of right now. Hunter Log is the one I use, and it will let you filter for new parks, which would be perfect for you. I don't care that much about that. I'm just out for the QSOs really, and I get a lot of new parks, but I'm happy being a repeat offender as well. So Hunter Log is one. The same guy also does the POTAmap.us, which is a great site too. So I'd recommend POTAmap.us for folks, everyone involved with POTA. But Hunter Log in particular is November 9 Foxtrot Zulu, used to be Kilo Quebec 4 Delta Alpha Papa, and he's from Georgia, and he's actively maintaining it. He's on Discord. I had a question when I was setting up at the cat control to my FTDX10, and he was great about helping me get that working, and he's continuing to develop it. So Hunter Log is a real winner for me. POTACat's the other one I'm trying. POTA CAT, like cat control. POTACat's very similar. It's also on GitHub. Also has Discord active group and support. Casey, Kilo 3 Sierra Bravo Papa from Philadelphia near me is a chief marketing officer, but he's a coder too. And he's the guy that developed POTACat, and it's free also. And it works great too. I also have that set up. I just haven't been using POTACat. I've stayed with Hunter Log for now. And there's another one I've not tried, but looks interesting, and that's Augratin, AUGRATIN. It's basically an extension of Potato, POTA, POTATO.
Yep.
And so it's a hunter-specific POTA software. Also, it's also on GitHub. Kilo 6 Golf Tango Echo. So that's another hunter-specific application. They all have cat control, and to me, that's really necessary. And in my setup, I have multiple radios. And like for digital, I have a different operating position basically for the digital stuff. And the hunter side with POTA, I have pretty much dedicated to that. Occasionally I'll switch it over to digital, but then it gets me kind of messed up. I got a lot of stuff I got to change back and around. I just got a new computer fairly recently, went from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Of course that was a bit of a nightmare at first, but it's settled down, and it's nice to have a fairly fast computer. And being Windows based, all this software works. As a Mac guy, you're a little more limited with that, right, Stu?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. 100%. If Hunter Log runs on a Mac, then I'm sold. That's for sure.
Yeah. And for logging software with the Hunter POTA software, because it doesn't do logging really itself, but it'll interface with logging software. Most of these will interface with whatever logging software you're using. I'm using N3FJP software for logging for the hunting stuff. I also have Ham Radio Deluxe, but Ham Radio Deluxe I'm using for other stuff. And my contesting, I'm generally using N3FJP also right now, but I fool around with some of the other ones too on the contesting side. I consider myself not really a contester. I have been participating in the major contests. I have some fun with them, but I'm not sitting there in the chair for the entire contest.
Yeah.
Sometimes I even take a day off or something.
Not like I was last weekend with my 6 million points during WPX, and I think I had 2,260 QSOs. So and that was with bad band conditions on Sunday morning. So
and I didn't even participate on Sunday. I had birthdays, family birthdays on Sunday, so I took Sunday off. But I did some Friday night, and Saturday, and had fun and made a few hundred QSOs.
And that's really at the end of the day, that's all that matters. It's just having fun, right? And if you want to go serious, like my wife says, every Saturday there's a contest coming on that you're on. So tomorrow is the Polish the SP contest, and I do it every year. I just love. I have a gateway into Poland from here for some reason. I always get sugar papas and sugar Quebec very, very easily from here. So
nice.
I think they're one hop, maybe 1 or 2 hops away. It's very all bands, no problem getting sugar papas. So I'm very fortunate that, and Lima Zulus are the other one I do really well. Bulgaria and Poland are 2 countries I seem to do very well at from here.
Right.
But ask me to get into China or in there, forget it. Not gonna happen as frequently.
Same with me. Europe is easy, but Asia can be tough for me. On occasion. I'm looking forward to getting a beam up. So basically, I'm in a suburban area, and I have some tall trees, evergreen trees in my backyard, and they're nearly 100 feet tall, and it's loaded with wires. I have all kinds of wire antennas up in those trees, and they just disappear. Nobody can see them. I only have neighbors on one side of me, so I'm fortunate, and we have underground utilities. So it's actually fairly quiet for a suburban neighborhood. My noise floor is quite low. And I'm able to get a lot of wires up in the trees. I also have several verticals and ground-mounted verticals, and those have been working well for me. But I want to get a beam up again. It's been years since I've had a beam. And that was one of the new things when I came in. The hex beam hadn't been invented yet. And so I wanted to try a hex beam, and I'm actually trying two. The KIO from 20 to 6, sort of a standard design. And the other one I have is kind of a monster. And it's a 40 to 6 meter. And on 40 and 30, is just a rotatable dipole, but I'm hoping it'll help me a bit on 40. My other main 40 meter antenna is an off center fed, a dipole, which is a doublet really. That's an 80 meter doublet that I can use on 40. And I also have a inverted L for 160 meters. This seems to work pretty well on all the load.
Yeah, I was just thinking about my antenna project for this summer. I share with them before we actually started recording that I do have. I have my tower. I have it's one of those. What would you say? I call it a Starlink tower. It's got the tapered top on it. Really for a thick antenna. So what we did was we put the G450 on top with the mast support. So it does okay, and it supports the KIO hex beam no problem. But this summer we plan to take that top piece of the tower down and put another straight piece down. And actually sitting right here on my desk, I have the G1000 rotator that we're gonna put in the cage and put a 40 meter rotatable dipole on there, and we're gonna keep the K4 KIO hex beam. It's served me well with the minus that one little incident that we had a couple months ago, but it served me really well. And Jeff, I could talk all over the world on that thing. And I guess it's one of the fortunate things being 5 kilometers away from salt water, right? To help.
Right.
But it's still, understanding propagation and how that all works is very, very important. That's, on the POTA side, those new apps are great. And thanks for mentioning them, because we'll put them in the show notes down below after. But what are some of the things that interest you about Parks on the Air, like keeps you wanting to hunt parks? So what keeps you going with that?
It's the relationships. It's the people. I just have fun talking to the people, and a lot of the activators I talk to every day. And there's a couple of activators in particular that I have worked many times. My number one, I pulled my stats. Get an idea, was James, PZN, KEAPZN. I have over 1,000 contacts with him, and he's kind of like you. He's more of a contester style. He's in and out. And that's one of the things that I find really helps me with the activators, and it makes it more fun for me, and I think it makes it more fun for them too, is I try and sort of mimic the tone and pace of the activator and get an idea of whether they want to rag chew, whether they just want to do to, an RST and location and move on, that's fine too. Just, how quick even I present the call, or if I'm just presenting it once, or they're having some trouble with it and, need to hit it a second time. I want to have some fun with them and give them the Ford Motor Company instead of the NATO finesse. It just varies, and it varies largely on my interpretation of who that person is or how I hear them at the moment, because sometimes they're going to be in a rush. They have a lot of people waiting, need to move on. Other times it may be pretty quiet. We're up on 17 meters or something, one of the other bands, and there may not be folks waiting, and it can be a little more relaxed, find out about the new antenna they're working on, the new radio they got. Maybe just today was experimenting a bit with different bandwidths, that sort of thing, because they hadn't been on to be able to see what the differences are. So it varies, but running into the same people is what makes it fun for me in particular. Keith is almost always my first one. Alpha Charlie 1 Romeo Hotel up in New England.
I have him coming on the show soon, hopefully.
Oh, great. Good.
Yeah.
And, he's out there every day, activating every day. He even takes a kayak, with his antenna and equipment out to an island, doesn't have anything else on it, and operate from, that little island. His new thing is he's teaming up with a buddy of his that owns an airplane, and he wants to try and activate while he's flying over the park. So that could be interesting. Yes, I talked with Keith about that this morning.
And it's allowed as well.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah. And that's one of the nice things about
the airspace around the park, as long as within the park boundary, the airspace is part of the park boundary.
Fantastic. That was one of the things that he's, looking into, because I hadn't really heard of that before. And so I think that's really exciting. These activators just find new ways to have fun with it. And I enjoy, being a part of that and getting in their logs when they're trying these new things. And we've certainly seen aeronautical mobiles usually checking in as hunters to the parks, but I haven't heard of that. I was talking with another guy, Josh, who is thinking of parachuting in. He does static jumps. Being a former military guy, and does a lot of static jumps. So it's a fairly short duration, low altitude. He's trying to figure out, and I was trying to give him some information about some radios and such, that ways you might be able to do it and do it safely. So it's just amazing, the creativity of the people. And that's what really keeps it fresh, I think. For me, it's almost all new, but it's amazing how they come up with different ways to try crazy things.
I know Gary, VA3 Golf Hotel Bravo, does a lot of those kayaking trips for POTA as well.
Mm-hmm.
For me this year, I've done all the parks within a 2-hour range of my house. Now, Peter, our mapping rep, is finding new ones all the time to add, being creative, but still, there's still a limit. So what I elected to do this year is take Salty Walt's antenna book and say, okay, instead of going and doing new parks, I'm going to go into my local one that I kind of go to, my local antenna testing park.
Right.
And let's see if we could, like I did last week. Last week I did a test with a $29 Chinese balun I picked up on Amazon, and just made a very simple 20-meter dipole, threw it up 20 feet in the air, and called CQ. And actually, it was the first activation where I took my FTDX10 with me.
Mm-hmm.
I love the FTDX10 so much, I bought a second one. So and now I have 2 FTDX10s, 2 amplifiers, 2 FT891s, 2 powers. I think the only thing I'm missing is a second hex beam. Although I do have the buddy hex here in the shack if I had to.
Oh, there you
that.
go. So you do have a second hex beam.
I do.
Yes.
I could throw it up in an emergency if I had to.
Right.
But as a contester, I believe in redundancies, because when it's going to fail, it's going to fail at the worst time. Like many of these other guys, I'm always trying to find new things to do. Okay, let's try new antennas. Let's try new styles. Let's go. I did an activation in December where I went out, and I told you about this before we started recording, our little 40-meter JA net that would do long path Japan at 40 meters in the winter. And I said, okay, let me take the KJ60R Performer. I just got the 40-meter extension kit and the 25-foot whip with the coil, and let me see if I can park this thing on the beach, aim it long path to Japan, and let's see if I can work JAs on a vertical with 100 watts. And I did it. So it was a nice challenge, right? And
that is.
So I'm going to be doing more stuff. Going out and doing let's go in the evening and do an 80-meter activation. Where we do nothing but 80 meters. 160, exactly.
Yeah, Todd, Alpha Echo 2, November Yankee. Used to be from New York. He's in Wisconsin now. He has a coil that he gets down there on 160, and some of the other guys are on 160 on occasion. That's a whole lot of fun, and you don't find a whole lot of activity. There's a fair amount of activity now on 80 meters, and as the sunspot cycle continues to wane, I think we'll see a lot of activators doing more of that. And I look forward to it. I think, it's a challenge and can be a whole lot of fun. Todd's actually just got a new radio and new amplifier for when he is activating. So, and he sounded great today. He's, he's just continuing refreshing things. Now he got just sort of a standard amp, but for you, Stu, I thought that your next amplifier for activations needs to be the Mercury Light. That's the portable one.
That's what that's a 500 watt one, I think.
600 watts, and it runs off of an e-bike battery. So you're not,
that's right.
You're not chewing up your battery that you're, depending on for your radio. So it's an independent power source. It's very compact. It actually has a built-in antenna tuner as well. The unit's reasonably compact. And there are several activators using the Mercury Light now. It's built in Florida, like the Mercury Light.
I've seen it. Yes, I've seen it now. That you say, if anybody wants to sponsor the channel and help contribute to my amplifier fund, just send me a super chat below. I'll be more than happy to accept that. My wife, Jeff, said to me, she used to go camping with me up until last year. We went out. We have a new little Chihuahua, and he doesn't like camping too much, so I think that's her excuse not to go camping. So this year, she said, why don't you just take Archie King V9 Pup with you? You've seen him in my other videos. Take him with you and go camping. And I said, you know what? That's a really good idea, because I'll take him to a campground. And I always, since I'm retired now, I'll go out Monday to Thursday and avoid all the crowds. And, and sit there. And I can go to a campground and get a nice spot and put up a 160 dipole and have lots of space to do that. Right. And try that. Or an 80 meter dipole in the evening. There's one campground I activated last year, about an hour from our house here. And the spot I had last year was it was open, but it was all open field behind us. So nobody really, I would have to put up some safety markers just to make sure nobody walks into the antennas, but it's pretty open there. Or go to another spot where they have some trees. But I think that's the spice about Parks on the Air, Jeff, that I see is, yes, you can go and set up your mag mount on your truck and, make your 10 contacts and go. And, some guys will find creative ways to do roves and, or go to new places and travel and work. I mean, I'm planning, knock on wood, the price of gas doesn't go too crazy. My youngest son is getting married this summer, but he lives in Alberta.
Congratulations.
So, he lives in Alberta, which is on the other side of the country. So we're thinking about driving out there. And I said, well, okay, we'll go somewhere, stop for a couple of days, activate some parks, stay for another couple of days, activate some more parks. And that was going to be that was going to be my rove, the Cross Canada Rove, right?
Right. That would be fantastic.
But some guys find creative ways to do, 20 parks in a day or 10 parks in a day, doing a rove where I did a rove when I first started going out doing Parks on the Air, where I did nothing but park to park. So I had to get my 10 contacts doing only park to park. Well, that made for a very, very long day,
But you see, that's where I'm most comfortable. Being a hunter, essentially, as a newbie activator, I found that what I like to do is go in and look for park to parks. I'm basically hunting the parks from a park, so it's in my comfort zone. And I use the Polo app, usually on my iPad or sometimes an iPhone. And my base system is a Yaesu FTDX10, and I have an ATOS on the car. Also have a 17-foot vertical. Also have a 40-meter NFED halfway. So, I have some options antenna-wise. And my wife has been accommodating when we're on vacation. She'll let me take a little time off. She doesn't want to come with me to the park activation typically, but, take some time off and go and try and activate a park. I haven't been terribly successful in spending enough time to fully activate the park necessarily, but I get some contacts in, I have some fun. Occasionally I do actually activate, if I stay around long enough, and it's a lot of fun. So typically it's about 100 watts or a little less with the 710, and the ATOS. I can get 2 to 3 more S units out of the vertical or the NFED, I found, than the little ATOS. But you can't beat the convenience, that's for sure. So I'm getting there.
ATOS is a nice antenna. I have one for my truck, and I haven't used it in a while because I just haven't had a need. I don't take my truck out that much because it drinks gas. But
right
at $1.80 a liter right now, where it stays in the garage more than it goes out. But
sure.
That's the cool thing about traveling is I have the same thing. Missy, my wife, she was a radio operator military like I was, but has zero interest in radio.
Mm-hmm.
She'll say that she allows me. I'm very honored that she lets me go out, and when we're traveling somewhere, I go out in the morning and play ham radio. As long as I'm back by lunch,
mm-hmm.
and I can take her out for the afternoon, it's all good. Which is perfect this time of year because the days get longer. In the morning, the sun comes up earlier, so I get out. You'll hear me sometimes activating at 6 o'clock in the morning my time.
Right.
I'm out at the beach at that's 3 hours UTC -3 for me. I'll be out at the beach at sunrise, hoping to catch the gray line somewhere.
Right.
And
I find Ken from Barbados is often on early. Activating a lot of the guys from the islands there. So they're often, when the sun's coming up, they'll be some of the first. Keith is usually on by 7 a.m. or so our time. But 40 isn't always good to us between the two of us until a little later, closer to 8 o'clock or so in the morning. But Keith's always there and almost always work him on 40 then. And those kind of relationships are just part of what makes it really fun for me.
It's funny with Keith, you mentioned that like I usually get him first thing when he starts activating.
Yes.
And as the morning goes on, he starts getting weaker and weaker. But he's usually like pounding in here like 20 over.
Yes.
No problem. Like for 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock his time. After 8 o'clock, it starts fizzling out. But I start losing 40 here around 8 o'clock. Now on bad propagation days, 40 will stay open longer. But Europe for me opens up real early on 40. I've worked Irish POTA activators at 3:30 in the afternoon my time in the winter. So that's about an hour or so prior to sunset, and so that's when Europe usually starts opening because we're actually closer to Europe than we are to I think the west coast of the United States.
Right. Yeah, so, I worked Europe this morning. And forget if it's Ireland or England, somewhere right around there. A lot of times those guys are pretty weak, and so they're kind of right in my noise floor a lot of the time. So that's on a vertical or the wire. I'll kind of flip around and see what's best, but I'm hoping the beam will help boost that up. And I have more power available if I need it. I don't typically run a lot of power with POTA. I just find, when they're running 100 watts or less a lot of the time, I just don't, need that. So I usually save that for the D-expeditions with the huge pile-ups or the contests, that kind of thing. Then I'll run the power. So I'm set up for it, but just don't find it necessary with POTA. And I actually ran most of last year 100 watts or less. And I have a QRP rig as well. And sometimes I just run QRP for the fun of it when I'm hunting. I try not to do it with the activators if they're not strong, but if they're S9 or above, I'll drop it down the QRP and just have some fun. It usually works out well. I don't want to make them dig me out of the noise. I know as a casual activator that it just seems a little more distracting out in the park. Even if you're wearing headphones and such, it just seems harder to focus. I find it when I'm sitting at home, I can hear down into the noise a little better than I can when I'm activating. Maybe with some experience, I'll get better at that.
The back on the topic about Europe, one of my requests, if anybody's watching this far into the video, if they're from Europe, is don't forget about 10 and 15 and even 17 or 12, because that really helps us guys over here. I've recently got into bunkers on the air. And bunkers on the air was primarily a European thing until recently. It just came into Canada last fall, and I think a U.S. chapter just opened up. Now they got lakes and lagoons on the air.
Yes, I just signed up for that.
Yeah, so the
Florida guys especially are really into that.
Yep. And then what was I thinking? Oh yeah, the problem is a lot of these guys on bunkers on the air from the UK, they're on 40 meters in the middle of the day because they want to work all their buddies in the UK, and I just can't hear them. There's no way I'm going to work a UK station in the middle of the day on 40 meters. But so Jeff, if you if you had some requests to activators to help you as a hunter, what advice could you share with an activator to make your life as a hunter much easier?
The first thing is spot. And when you spot, try and complete the information and complete it accurately, because that's really what I rely on. I don't need you to tell me the park every time. I don't even necessarily need your call sign every time. I'm getting that information from the spot, hopefully. And I'm almost always going to have the spot available and to utilize it. Also, I'm typically listening beforehand. So I already know the information, I already know their call sign, I already know the parks if I really care about it. As the hunter, it's not particularly important unless I want to track it independently, but it's all about the activator and the activator uploading their log. So, what I record isn't particularly important. I do, as a courtesy, try and log and spot, and I do it immediately upon the contact. And the hunting software that I mentioned before integrates in with loggers to make that very convenient for the hunter. So I have the cat control, so I can click right on the frequency and the mode. It goes right there to the spot. So if the spot's accurate, it's going to work. Then when the QSO is complete, I click to log and spot. It's one button in Hunter Log, and it automatically puts it into my N3FJP log, which automatically goes to QRZ. And then I also put it into Logbook of the World. With some of the DX stuff, maybe Club Log or something else as well, EQSL, but typically those are more afterthoughts for me. I'm not necessarily logging to those automatically. QRZ and Logbook of the World, yes. And I'm respotting also because I think that's helpful to the activator to keep those fresh. And if I see that one is not accurate, I try and take the time to correct it and make it accurately. So when I respot, that'll be helpful to the other hunters as well as to the activator.
It's reminds me of a story the other day. Jerry, KB2 Golf Charlie Golf, I think it's called. He was spotted at a brand new park, or not a brand new, but a new to me park in Oregon.
Right.
And he was 5'9". I got on there and I said, "Are you in Oregon?" He says, No, I'm in Delaware." He says, "Well, you're spotted in Oregon." So I said, "Well, give me the park number and I'll update the spotting page for you." And it turned out it was a park I needed anyway in Delaware, so it worked out good. Sometimes the activator will type in the wrong number, hit the wrong key, right? And that happens. I think I've done that a few times. Also, another recommendation as well is I find sometimes that I make the odd mistake when I'm putting logs in.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put in, instead of putting N3FMC, I'll put N4FMC just because I'm not paying attention, and that happens. I as a hunter, I wouldn't be embarrassed to email an activator, say, I worked you on this side at this time on this date, and I don't see it in my POTA log yet. And I say, "Oh, sorry, I put in the wrong call. Let me go correct that and re-upload the log." Right. So as a hunter, you don't feel bad about reminding activators. Sometimes most of them are pretty good, but slip-ups do happen. Jeff,
and it's all for fun. I try not to take it too seriously. I do check the stats on occasion, and I've been really going after the Keg Man because he's been number one all of last year. He was the number one POTA hunter last year. This year, he was the number one POTA hunter this year, except for 2 or 3 days. I knocked him out for 2 or 3 days while he was down in Orlando at Hamcation having fun, with all the POTA guys down there. And I was jealous that he got to meet them down there. So I was hitting the parks hard while he was gone. He's flying in the airplane and I'm working parks. And as soon as he came back, now I'm knocked back down a peg or two.
It was Stuart VE3RGO that coined the phrase, "POTA is the non-contest contest."
Right, exactly.
It's contest-like with a lot of fun. And and I talked to Tim K3LR as well about a serious contester, and he said it's all about having fun.
And near me as well. He's in Pennsylvania too.
Yeah, it's all about having fun. That's the most important thing. If you're not having fun at ham radio, find some other part of ham radio that you'll enjoy, or maybe get another hobby.
Well, and for me, it's a lot like what Kevin the Kegman does. I'm working primarily as an attorney out of my home office, and so I have a lot of control over my schedule. I also have my shack in my home office. So I will kind of bounce back and forth between chairs from the ham radio to here. So I'll take a little coffee break and go through the parks and have some fun there, and then go back to work. Sometimes
I do the same thing.
Yep. And how's it work out for you?
When I was a fractional CMO up until September of last year, when my daughter stepped in and took over everything for me, I used to have one chair that was on ham radio, and when it's funny, when I was on client meetings, I would be on FT8.
Yes, I do the same thing. I actually remote into the computer in the same office, and I run digital while I'm on Teams calls and such sometimes. Right.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
Right. Exactly.
So hey, Jeff. So thanks for taking time out of your Good Friday to come and talk to us and sharing your wealth of knowledge around POTA hunting. I'm sure a lot of people, when this is published, will be happy to put a face to the call sign and the name. And I really appreciate you. You, the Kegman, and a few others. Every time I'm out, I can always count on a contact from you guys. So I really appreciate you guys being out there. Makes one of my 500 or so QSOs I get that day. So me, it's all to me. I'm a contester at heart, so I can't just sit there and rag shoot. Although I have done a few activations where I rag shoot, and it was a lot of fun too. But to me, it's just about how it's now it's about testing antenna. I built a 9-1 unend today. My first unend that I ever built.
Excellent. Now, where are you going to use that?
I'm looking at building one of the verticals that's in Salty Walt's book.
Okay.
And like you, I was an IT professional for years, but not a very technical one where I could build computers and stuff like that. I never did that. I was more of a software guy, and then I got into marketing. But I always said, now that I have time and I have a nice shack that I can, I always say I worked hard to have this shack that I have now. And I said, now I can start building all this stuff, all the stuff I wanted to do. Now it's all scattered over my desk here. A radio oddity antenna that I got to test, and electrical components everywhere. It's a mess. Anyway, Jeff,
it sounds like fun.
It is a lot of fun.
That's part of the fun. Absolutely.
Exactly.
There's always more. Always something new with ham radio. It's one of the things I really enjoy. And sometimes what's new is what's old. I want to get back into CW. I'm so rusty with CW. I'm not comfortable with it. And I'd love to be able to hunt and maybe activate utilizing CW.
I thought about that for like 5 minutes and went, I did it as a profession. And the military, drilled it into us, when we were young. I said, no, not anymore. No, I'll go do satellite. I'll go do something, slow scan TV. I'll go do anything, RTTY. But
I haven't tried the satellite yet either. So that's another thing I need to try. I got a couple of DMR radios for 2440. Haven't really gotten into that yet. We'll see if I do or not. I thought that I'd find FT8 boring, but now I find
FT8 is fun.
It is fun. It's addictive. There's a lot of DX on there, and FT4 is good. We just need more guys using FT4.
Have you done FT2 yet?
Yes, and I've been trying FT2, but it's even worse than FT4 in terms of the lack of signals out there. So yeah, get on FT2, get on FT4. I try and go first to FT4 before I go FT8. Just see if somebody's there, throw out a few CQs. If I don't hear anybody, see if I can stir something up. And if I don't, then go back to FT8. I try and do the same thing now in FT2.
Well, the funny thing about FT8 is, without FT8, I probably wouldn't have gotten the X-Ray 9 Whiskey Expedition, and I think I got them on FT8, and Sugar 21 Whiskey Delta I got on FT8. So I would have missed those. Expeditions if it wasn't for the digital mode. Jeff, thanks again, my friend. Appreciate it. And
Thank you.
Have a wonderful Easter weekend with your family. If you celebrate
Happy
that.
Easter.
And we'll see you. I definitely will see you on the air one day soon.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Derek.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and watching the podcast this far. If you made it this far, if you want to learn more about what Jeff, go check out his QRZ page. He's got a very interesting story there about his ham radio journey. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on, just follow us here on YouTube. That's all we ask. We got lots of great people coming on this program. So if you want to be on the show, just drop me a note. My email address is good in QRZ. I'll be more than happy to see if you're a good fit for what we want to do here. 7-3, everyone. 7-3, Jeff. And we'll see you guys in the next video.